Gosh, it took us so much time. Hey everyone, welcome to Teachers Love Edu. We're creating, we are inviting amazing guest speakers here. We are talking about different edtech tools, projects, and today I'm super excited because we are talking about STEM, nature, and SDGs with amazing Meridith Ebbs, amazing educator from Australia. I'm going to invite Meredith in a while, in a very short time. But before we dive in, I would love to ask you a question, which is super common here. And from which part of the world you're tuning from, what is your teaching role exactly? Please do share in the Q&A box. And so I hope the connection will be recovered very soon. We've got a longer delay today because, different hemispheres, they're super opposite ones. So I guess this is the reason. And drop some more comments in the Q&A box. What is your mood? How is your Sunday going? So thanks so much, everyone who joined us on Sunday. Happy Palm Sunday if you celebrated. And on this positive and lovely note, I would love to invite amazing Meredith. Meredith, hi. How are you today?
Hi, how are you? I'm great.
Can you hear me well? Everything is okay. But we have the longer delay today because as I mentioned before, I guess this is because we are from opposite hemispheres. And I'm so excited. I'm super grateful and just can't express my excitement that you are joining us from Australia. So could you give yourself brief self-introduction for our amazing viewers?
So I have been teaching for over 25 years.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
I've taught in a range of contexts. I've taught K to 10, which is 5-year-olds to 16-year-olds. I've taught adults. I've taught in schools. I've taught in corporate, like in business. And
Wow.
I'm now working for an educational ed tech company where we create courses online.
Fantastic. Sounds like a dream to me. So today we're sharing with Waycode Resource Collection that Meredith kindly prepared for our today's live webinar. If you're watching us on Facebook, hi, Facebook Live, so come on, hop into, click the YouTube link that I've attached to the post and hop into our Q&A box here on YouTube. You're going to get this collection, very first one. We are sharing this closer to the end of our session, of course. And of course, don't forget to grab your highlights and first things first, ask any questions if you have about STEM and everything that all the amazing things that Meredith is going to share today. So drop the questions in the Q&A box and also share your highlights, your wows, your hows from this session and post them on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and wherever you feel comfortable yourself, what socials you've got. So we are everywhere. Don't forget to tag myself, Meredith, and also use the hashtag #TeachersLoveEdu. And also, Meredith, is it STEM and Nature? Is it correct? STEM and Nature. So I've attached this also on Twitter. So I can't wait to start listening to you amazing sharing on STEM and SDGs. And I know that about the nature in Australia, it's something very precious and that's like super fragile because there are so many species and you are taking care of all of them very carefully. You shared that you've got hospital for koalas.
Yeah, in my town, we have a hospital for koalas and they have a little ambulance. And if you find a koala that looks injured, you can call the ambulance and they'll come and collect it and take it to the hospital.
This is fantastic. But before we dive in, I would love to ask you one of the precious questions. What inclusive education is? What does it mean to you personally? Since you've got 25 years of, experience working as a teacher, as an educator. So please do share.
I think inclusive education means meeting a child where they're at. So if a child comes to school and they're not ready to learn, for whatever reason, they've had a bad start to the day, that's where you meet them at. They're not ready to learn. So you need to, have you had breakfast? Go and have grab something out of your bag, come and have something to eat. Even if they're just sitting at their desk, do you need to have a break? Let them have a break. So that's emotionally inclusive, meeting them just right there then. Because, Maslow, you can't teach if you're hungry or if you're cold or if you're hot or, those sorts of things. So meeting a child emotionally where they're at on the day is the first thing. But if they've got special needs, it's about meeting them where they're at as well. So an example would be, I've spent a lot of time teaching 10-year-olds. And so when I've had children who are not at a 10-year-old's level, I would potentially run, let's say, use an example of if we're coding and I'm teaching Scratch, scratch.mit.edu is the website. If I've got children who aren't ready for Scratch, then I would have on the iPads, on tablets, I would have Scratch Junior. So we're all coding, but we're all coding at the level that we're at, not pushing kids beyond what they're ready for. And if you've got gifted children and they're ready for text-based coding, then letting them move forward into something new while everybody else is still doing blocks. So to me, that's what inclusive is. It's meeting kids where they're at and what they're ready for.
That's fantastic. I love the ideas that you drop, that first needs, like to make sure that they're not hungry.
Yeah, they're not hungry. Well, how many kids come to school without breakfast? They've had to rush because mum and dad have gone to work, or they've had to make it themselves and they didn't. So just meeting kids where they're at, it's important.
Fabulous. Love this a lot. So do you want me to start sharing the screen?
Sure.
Whenever you're just ready. Let's go. Yay.
So my topic is STEM and nature and the SDGs. So I will define what SDGs are if you haven't heard of those.
Thank you.
But firstly, what I'd like to do is, in Australia, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land as part of reconciliation with Aboriginal people. And so I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where I come from today, which is the Biripi people. They speak the language of Gatang, which was almost extinct. And they're actually working now with some Aboriginal elders, have gone through to university to learn linguistics so they can reinvent that language. So the Biripi people are my local people. I'd like to acknowledge their ongoing custodianship of this land, the waterways, the air and the bushland. I would like to acknowledge their elders, past and present, and I'd also like to acknowledge the upcoming elders, the young people who are coming through who will lead their culture into the future. I'd also like to acknowledge any Aboriginal people who have joined us today, or Torres Strait Islander people, and any First Nations people who are joining us from any country in the world, and acknowledging your traditional people as well. On the screen there, you can see some weaving. So the bookmark there that we've made was made with just some local grasses. And then we've just used raffia, which is like a craft fibre, to do some weaving. And that particular item was actually turned into earrings and badges, brooches. And then over on the right here, we were making rope with raffia as well, but they traditionally made it with grass. And then there's 3 images there of the 3 locations where we would go to teach when we would teach outside at my previous school. So this one in the middle here was Bushland Day. We used to go to the bush. During COVID, we went every fortnight. But since then, it's mainly once a term. We would go into the bushland, spend the whole day in the bush, which is forest. Sorry, bush. So in Australia, bush is not a single bush. It is actually the forest, the local forest.
Oh my gosh.
And what you can see behind me was all burnt during Australia's bushland fire.
Sorry.
So that was all burnt through there. So it's grown back now because Australian bush regenerates after fire. So that's very exciting. So traditionally, I did a Bachelor of Science with a DipEd in primary and a Master's in adult education, and I'm currently studying a cybersecurity graduate certificate. And I've been a technology specialist and a STEAM specialist, and I've also at my previous school was privileged to learn the pedagogy of nature pedagogy, which is how do you teach outside. And the little picture there that you can see, that's a local pathway just, you
So
know,
beautiful.
5 minutes from my house. Yes.
Absolutely. I was so close to get to Australia. So close. Yes.
You were close, weren't you?
Years ago.
So SDGs are Sustainable Development Goals. They were established by the United Nations, and they're designed so that people actually have a framework in order to protect the environment and work toward a better addressing climate change, sustainable issues, and environmental problems. So for the people who don't believe in climate change, there is still, these goals are still applicable in that it's about protecting our local environments, our local habitats, and our biodiversity. It's about being responsible consumers and ensuring that everyone in the world has access to quality education and food. So it's actually more than climate change, and that's only one goal. So if you're not a believer in climate change, there's actually no reason you still can't implement these goals. So this presentation links the activities to different goals so that you can see how they would look in a classroom. So the ones that are relevant to my presentation today, I've just printed there. A lot of them are about land on water and life in the water and life on land, but there is others also. So I'm just going to jump straight into it. Is that okay, Anna?
Yeah, sure.
So a lot of my projects that I'm going to talk through today link to technology, and I love microbits. Microbits are about, in Australian dollars, about $30. So that's not expensive for a piece of technology in Australia.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much they are overseas. I know in England, one was given to every single Year 7 student for several years, and that's how the BBC launched the program. Was the high school students were given one in their bag so that they could use it in class. It uses 3 languages. You can use block coding, you can use JavaScript, or you can use Python. So it is a really great little piece of technology because it leads from quite low skills right through to some more advanced skills. So today's projects all link to primary levels, so 8 to 12-year-olds. That's where I've spent a lot of my time teaching, so that's what all my projects link to today. The first one is a counter, and what we did with this counter was we built the counter in class, and then we took the microbits with batteries attached to the beach, and then we had each group were given something they had to count. So a lot of my projects were to do with biodiversity. We had a biodiversity project happening. And so we were looking at different types of animals that lived at the beach. So one group counted a particular species of plant, which is common at a beach. Another counted birds. Another was counting spiders. And so they just pressed button A and it would add on. And to build this, we went through how do you design code in class, and then we built it. So it's mathematical because it's collecting data. It's scientific because we were looking at living things. Another project that we looked at was with compasses. So this is a maths project. So this is all about how do you teach outside but still teach all of the standard curriculum that you have to teach, because you can't duplicate, you just don't have time. So rather than using a piece of paper in class and having drawn maps, we made a compass and we went outside and the students made their own map. And they had to give directions to their friends using north, east, south and west, rather than just doing it on a piece of paper. So this is about taking kids outside. And I think and I'm not sure what it's like in the Northern Hemisphere because your climate isn't quite as conducive to going outside. But
sometimes it's like impossible.
Yeah. In saying that, I know in England they have what's called forest schools, and they teach outside all the time, even in winter, even in the rain. And at my school, I'm in subtropical, so when it rains for weeks. So it's raining now. It's been raining for 2 weeks. And so it's play outside with a raincoat. So
Yeah.
you still play outside. You just take a raincoat. So if you're in cold weather, I presume you would have all your winter stuff that they would have, and you would go
Mhm.
outside in all your winter gear, and you can still do these types of activities maybe in the spring and autumn, and it's not quite
Yeah.
as cold. So you can see there's two lots of code on this screen. The one on the left is very simple code, but the one on the right is much more specific on what angle will the arrows come in. And so you're introducing geometry, degrees, and it's ironic because in Australia, year 3 and 4 don't learn that. That's a 5, 6, like a 12-year-old's concept, not a 10-year-old's concept. But because you're doing it in a practical sense, they actually understand more so than they would if you were just doing it on a piece of paper or a worksheet. This is about a health goal. So this is a pedometer. A pedometer is like your Fitbit on your Apple Watch or one of those watches that count how many steps you've done.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so you can
useful thing.
build one on a microbit, and then you can do an investigation on where is the best place to wear that so that it's the most accurate. Well, the best place to wear it for the teacher answers on your shoe. So you make a little strap to tie it to your shoe because it picks up the movement of the foot better than if you were to put it on your arm or on your wrist. So you can do a maths investigation then on how many steps does it take to how many playtimes do you have to run your 10,000 steps in a day, or how far do you run? So you can actually modify that to be when I have run 10,000 steps, say, and I run 70 centimeters in a step, 70 centimeters. You can do a little maths application and multiply it out, work out how far they ran rather than just having a number of steps. So you've got links in that application to science with your investigation of where to wear it, your coding, your engineering and your design in where's the best place to wear it, and how are you going to design a little strap so that it can attach to your shoelaces, and measurement with maths.
This is something like, I've never heard anything like this.
Oh, so the previous school I was at didn't use textbooks. So we actually used a lot of practical learning and part of the curriculum in Australia is that when you teach STEM, they like it to be linked to real world applications. So
Amazing.
I'll get to another real world application in a moment, but these are all just really simple projects. Like you can see how simple that code is. That code is like year 3, so 7 and 8-year-old level, where I would teach that. And you can just do this with a hot and cold. Where is it hot? Where is it cold? And I've put if it's less than 25 degrees, you need to put on a jumper. And so, and I know you're thinking that's hilarious, but we're used to it being like 30 degrees.
Oh
and
my
so,
God.
It's much hotter. But to get it cold in Australia, we actually had to put the microbits in the fridge because
Oh my God.
in summer it is not cold. So
Which is outside here.
So if you put the board of the microbit, the board is actually the part that gets the temperature. So if the board gets cold, then it will register as cold. It's not the air temperature like a regular thermometer. So when I put the board out in the sun I think it was spring that I put the board in the sun, and the board got to 55 degrees. But it wasn't 55 degrees air temperature. It's just that's how hot the sun was. So, which is why we have a lot of sun safety things in Australia.
Oh my God.
So this is a far more complex thermometer, and it's probably even quite difficult for stage 3. But what this would let them do is work out maximum and minimums, and just have more information from the thermometer. So all these projects a lot of them are coming from the Microbit website, which I've put in the Wakelet. So you'd be able to reproduce those in your own classrooms. So
Fantastic.
outdoor STEAM projects, they actually bring a real opportunity just to have a real world application. And this month is Citizen Science Month. So citizen science is when a member of the public is involved in scientific research through apps or through websites. So an example that we would have is in Australia, the Australian Museum runs multiple citizen science projects, one being they have an app for frog identification. So when you mentioned before, we have quite a large biodiversity, which we do. So I have so far found 4 different types of frogs that live in my backyard. We don't spray. We don't use any pesticides in my backyard. And I have a little frog pond and I have a little bird bath. And so every time you hear frogs croaking, you get your little app out and you go and record your frog, and somebody can identify the species of the frog from the noise it makes. But the people who do it are actually part of the museum. And so they're investigating why have frog numbers declined, because they're an environmental indicator. So if frog numbers decline, that means there's a problem with pollution and the environment. So what they're doing is they're tracking where frogs live, how many recordings they're getting. And if you find a frog that has died, they actually want you to take photos of that frog and send it so they can work out what it's dying from, if it's got something wrong with its skin.
So clever.
Yeah. So as a person just living in my own house, I can actually participate in that project because citizen science actually increased worldwide in 2020. Because what happened was the scientists couldn't go out and do their field research. So they developed apps and websites, and members of the public could participate, and they couldn't go anywhere because they were all in lockdown. So they found the number of people participating in science has actually increased. And another app I'll talk about later is iNaturalist, and that's a worldwide app that anybody can participate in. And another example is there was a project on dead trees. So when you find a dead tree, you take a photo and you upload it to the website, and the scientists are tracking where trees are dying. And that's really important because of our major bushfires that we had. The number of trees that have actually died has increased because in some places the fires were so hot the trees actually can't regenerate and they've died. So there's lots of different types of projects. So this is a project I did with my school. We were actually nominated for we were a national finalist in the competition, in an award.
Wow, this is fantastic.
Finalists, and the winner was the barrier reef. So you can't compete with the barrier reef, right? So they won. But my project was about biodiversity in a playground. So what we'll do is we use this app, and like I said, it's a worldwide app, and it's on Apple and Android. And you take photos, you upload it, and somebody who is passionate about different species will go in and tell you what it's called. And you can use it in your classroom. So the students didn't upload it. If the students took photos, they would send me the photos, and then the teachers would upload. The school is still doing the project, even though I'm not there. And we've so far got 540 observations. And we've found one critically endangered animal, which was called the swift parrot. We found 3 vulnerable animals. So we saw a koala in our backyard. They're actually in our playground. They're actually considering putting koalas on the endangered animals list now because of the fires. We also saw a curlew, which flies to Russia. So they fly from where I live some fly to Russia through China, others fly to Alaska. And so we saw one of those, and we also saw a frog. There's a vulnerable frog that lives in my area. So that was, and then we downloaded all the data, and the kids had to graph it, and they had to identify all the different taxons. So this is 10-year-olds, not high school. And we found 12 different types of animals and plants, so like fungi, birds, flowering plants, amphibians. It was all like very high up.
Incredible.
It was great. And we used microbits for the counter. The bird there in that picture, that's the swift parrot. It's critically endangered, and they fly to Port Macquarie from the snowy mountains, and then in summer they fly north. And Australia doesn't have very many migrating birds, so this is one of the few migrating birds. A lot of our migrating birds actually migrate to the northern hemisphere. We don't have a huge number of them, so that curlew is one. Most of our birds just live here year-round. But because this one lives in the snowy mountains, which our mountains aren't very high, our mountains are, I think it was like 2,000 metres, our highest mountain. And so this bird comes from there up to the north coast. And that is a little caterpillar one of the kids found. We thought it was quite beautiful.
Yeah.
These are maps. The one on the right is the school playground. The one on the left is our local bushland. And red flags are insects. Blue flags are vertebrates, so animals with a backbone.
Oh, my God.
The maroon flags are fungi, and the green flags are plants. So the children would bring creatures to you at lunchtime, and we would just take a photo and upload it. And this is the data that we'd found. And you can see the pattern in the bushland is actually the pathway that we walk. You don't go off it. You don't go off the pathway in Australian bushland because it's too easy to get lost. So we just walk on a track, and that's why there's a pattern in the data there. So the biodiversity, there was a couple of things we did. We did classification of animals. Once again, this is 10-year-olds. And classification links into your digital technologies and your computational thinking with technology, even though it's on a piece of paper. And so I just gave them 4 different types of things, and they had to work out a binary tree of what's the difference between this plant and this plant. Well, this one has spiky leaves and this one has rounded leaves. So they go into different boxes, and they tick the boxes and working out features of the different items. And we also made a map. So this is the bushland site.
Amazing.
And when I gave it to them, it was just a track. And every time we went into the bushland, we would update it with features or different species that we were studying. So, so that's the biodiversity project. And all of that is linked to the Sustainable Development Goal of life on land. And the students all were aware of that. We would talk about those.
Meridith, I just want to say my eyes a bit wet because, the way how caring you build mindset of your students. So their attitude to the nature is so caring. And I just want to have it in every country, like all over the world like that, because I've never heard anything like this, like from anywhere.
The thing is, you can't be a custodian of the environment if you don't know and understand about it. The students need to have knowledge of what the animals and plants are in their environment and around them, even if it's just in their backyard. If they don't have a backyard, in their local park. Go down to their local park and look for little insects or little creatures, birds.
I'm going to highlight it.
So they need to understand the importance of that. I just heard today Australia has the most number of species of seaweed, and seaweed is a carbon sink. And some of our seaweed is actually going to die if and when sea level temperatures increase. And so they're now doing research in how do they reestablish seaweed, forests. They call them kelp forests. because they're so important for carbon sinks, because they collect the carbon and they grow and they store it. So it was quite interesting. I was fascinated. I didn't realise how unique it was. So so another project that microbits can use is with light levels. Now, we've focused on brightness, but you might focus on darkness. Like your brightness levels are going to be much lower than our brightness levels. So the brightness that a student needs to learn is actually 300 lux. Lux is the measurement of light. And a educational researcher in England called Dr. Stephen Heppel, he actually did research with their prison system. And if light levels fall below 300 lux, they put the prisoners into lockdown because their behaviour decreases. And they're more, when it's darker, they're more likely to have poor behaviour. So to address that, what you need to do is have bright lights in the classrooms of a certain lux. And so the ideal learning temperature is 25 degrees. Now, when it's hot in Australia, people often put the temperature lower than that. And when it's cold, people often put it at higher than that. And so, but 25 degrees is the ideal learning temperature. So what we did with our microbits was we went outside with our programmed microbits to find what light levels there were outside and compare it to inside. And so you could do the same thing but you would be focusing on how dark your outside environment might be, whereas we were focusing on how bright it was and where could we get darker. You might be focusing on, in the Northern Hemisphere, where can you find a space that's got more light. So that actually is a really, really easy little program there. And when you press the button on the microbit, button A, it just reads the light level from the board. So this is another little, I just need to put my glasses on. I can't read that.
Sure.
So this one is looking for light levels that are above 100, but you could be looking for light levels that are below 100 or below 200 to find spaces that are too dark. You know, you can modify this code to suit yourself. So one project that we talked about doing, which we didn't, was to take it home and measure the nighttime ambient light at night. And if there was another lockdown, this was going to be a project that we did, because ambient light interrupts migration of nighttime animals. So in Australia, bogon moths are a big food source for a creature in the southern, a pygmy possum in the Snowy Mountains, but they migrate from the north of Australia, and they're endangered now. So that means it's going to impact on the pygmy possum, right? Because they haven't got a food source. But they're distracted by light. So the fact that I'm sitting here in my lit lounge room, if there was bogon moths migrating, they might be banging on the window and getting distracted by the lights of urban areas and not flying where they're supposed to be going. And other turtles get interrupted, and so do bats. If you have bats.
Wow. Yeah, sure.
So I'm sure there's other animals as well. They're just 3 that are in my area. So this is a little night light. All the lights will turn on when the light level goes below 100. So you could perhaps make a little torch and put a little electric circuit on it. This is the website where I get a lot of my project ideas, and there's lots more. So when I share this through the Wakelet, the link is down the bottom there of that page.
Meredith, do you mind if I'm sharing the Wakelet resource collection right now?
Oh, okay. I actually have. I haven't put the link to the presentation in yet, so I'll do that.
Oh my gosh, are you going to share with us?
Yeah.
Oh,
what I'll do is I'll just remove the pictures of the students, and then I'll put the presentation in. So this is a project that we made, which I'm not sure if you could do it. You'd have to do it in summer if you were to do it in Russia. But this is a little solar cooker that we made from a pizza box. So when you go to the pizza shop and you get your little your pizza in your box, This is a pizza box. The kids painted it
I
black
love
because
pizza.
it absorbs the heat, and they put foil inside, and then that's just cling wrap or plastic film and the top. They've cut the hole in the top of the box. If you Google pizza box oven, that's how I found this. So pizza box oven would find it. And what they were doing was very American. They were making s'mores. So they had a biscuit on the bottom, then they had a marshmallow, and they used magnifying glass to melt the marshmallow. Then they put chocolate on the top and put it in the oven to melt the chocolate. And there's an old style thermometer in there because they were trying to measure what the temperature inside the box got to. It got to over 50 degrees, which was quite amazing because it was a really overcast day. So it wasn't a hot day. And you can see in the left picture there that had really...
Meredith, what does it mean not very hot day to you? Because for me,
Not a very hot day. It was probably like mid-20s. It was like 25. That's not hot, really. I know it's hot for you. That's why when people, if you come to Australia and you're from a cold climate, I would come either in autumn, winter, or spring. If you're from a cold climate, I wouldn't come to Australia in summer because it would just...
we could melt.
Yeah, you would melt. You would. It would be... I mean, our winter you would think is a beautiful day. So the lowest my temperature gets here, we sometimes get down to 7. 7. Very, very, very occasionally we'll get a frost.
Wow.
So
occasionally. Okay.
If you go west, because we're close to the ocean, we don't get frost. But if you go west, you can get frost a lot of the mornings. And if you're up the top of the hill, you'll get frost and sometimes snow. Sometimes, but not often.
Wow.
So these were investigating temperature. We also did an investigation with chocolate, dark, milk, and white chocolate. What one melts first and why? And we investigated different combinations of chocolate and what influences that. So the dark chocolates takes the longest to melt because it has the most cocoa solids in it. This is an example of how you can take... When you're outside, you don't even have to be outside. You can bring your nature inside, and the children sketch what they can see, and it's a real big learning process for them to actually learn to sketch what they see, not what they think they see. And so this is a study we did on a little violet that we have growing in our area. It's an edible violet, and we just talked about where it grows, where it doesn't grow, why doesn't it grow there. So it grows in the shade in moist spaces, and how big do they grow. So they had rulers and they had to measure how tall the violets grow. So you could basically pick any type of little flowering plant that it grows in your area or in your schoolyard and go and investigate it. It doesn't have to be native. It could be just in gardens. You know, why is it growing here and over here it doesn't look quite as healthy? Why isn't it as healthy in this garden? What's different? You know, and they sketch it and write what they learn.
Beautiful.
So these are Banksias that the kids drew.
Wow.
So these are year 4. But they get these books when they're in kindergarten. And so they actually learn to sketch every single year. This is the first time I've ever seen this happen at any school. And it was a really great way to bring art into a more relaxed environment. And so this was actually a form of scientific drawing.
Incredible.
I
want to be a part of your classes or something because it's so amusing.
It was actually a really lovely school. So all of these links I'm going to put in the Wakelet. And we've got some links to my personal blog. That very bottom link there, John Muir, that is a nature journaling website. Talks about what is nature journaling and how do you do it. So he's got lots of videos on how to draw. It's very North American, but it actually has lots of really great tips on how to improve your drawing. Because as a teacher, art isn't my specialty, but that site really helped me teach how to draw. So it was a really great Yeah.
I would grab those links for sure, because sometimes I want to draw something, but I don't have enough skills, to make it happen. So
YouTube is your friend. I was not ashamed to put a YouTube how to draw something up on the board, and we would just pause, right? Everybody go and do that bit. Okay, everyone ready? Play. Because
sure, YouTube is the best. That's
have
my
no
playground
problem.
learning as well.
No problems telling the kids that I don't know how to do this part, but I really want you to experience that. So let's learn off an expert. And yeah, YouTube is your friend.
Meredith, I'm so grateful for all the links, the resources that you shared. You just, brought a new world to me, and new thoughts for food, and like so many things and insights I grabbed from you, especially how it's important and the ways how we can, build up this mindset, the right mindset for students, so they can understand why it's important to, not to pollute, but to support and, our environments.
It's about teaching kids to be custodians, and there's actually
leaders.
we had a block. There was a large patch of land that was for sale just at the end of the street where the school was, and it was bushland, and they were going to sell it to a developer and knock it down. And there's a koala breeding colony there, and so I read the children a picture book called Sophie Valdez for Prayers, which is by I'll put the link in the Wakelet.
Sure.
I
would be grateful.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been translated, but it's an American author, and I read it. It was about a little girl that was petitioning for a local park. And she went through the process that she wrote to the council, then she had to go and speak at the council, and we talked about that. So we decided we would write to our government about protecting the koala. So some kids wrote to our local, in Australia, we have a local member that represents us in Parliament. So they wrote to her, and some people wrote to the treasurer, and some people wrote, and so they all wrote, and the local member also valued that topic, and there was money after the fires set aside called koala strategy money, and they actually, with the Port Macquarie Hospital, bought the land. They bought the land, and so it can be developed, and it's going to be used by the hospital as a releasing space for babies when they have babies in the hospital that they need to release somewhere. They'll put them into that space, and they'll be able to move into the national park. So it was a really learning experience for them to be able to, how do we go about being proactive and expressing our voice without being, disagreeable.
Yeah.
It's a civilized way to express that. So that was a really good experience for them to learn that they can petition government and get something that's a positive outcome. So, but it's exciting because now the kids know where that patch of land is, and where the koalas will be. And they were just fencing it just recently. They've put fences up so that, and because there's kangaroos, and it's not just the koalas.
Oh my God.
It's all the little. Well, I have kangaroos that come on my front lawn. So
are they dangerous? Because I've heard that they can kick.
Dangerous. We actually I taught the kids what to do if a kangaroo attacks you.
Yeah. What to do? Like I can meet one.
Curl up in a ball on the ground and expose your back, because you've got your ribs there. The ribs will protect you. But if you stand up, they could slice your stomach with their claws. So they're fine. It's only if you challenge a male or a pregnant mother with a baby. You just don't challenge them. It'd be like challenging, I don't know, a deer. You don't challenge an animal. So it's, if you just give them their space, they bounce off. They do jump down the road.
Yeah. Sure.
So it's it's not just about the koalas. It's about the pygmy possums. It's about the sugar gliders. It's about the lizards. It's about everything that lives in that bushland site. And it's so important to preserve our native spaces. But it's very hard because the population's increasing and there's no land for housing, so they knock down the trees. So it's actually a very controversial issue.
Oh my God, that's...
So,
just a quick question of mine, because I was born, at the age of the earth, so like the soil is frozen. Yeah, I told you that story before. And we don't have that many kind of species of different insects, even animals. Okay, but do any people there, like in Australia, do they have any fear of insects or something? Because I'm terrified. Like
always.
when I really, so you still have it. Some people even. Oh.
Yes, and people, so I posted a picture. If you go through my Instagram, you'll have to go back a while. I posted a picture of a green spider. Now, the green spider was the photo it's taken on it's on a 1 centimeter grid of graph paper. So it was tiny. I had to zoom right in. I had my phone really close. It looks big, but it was actually like it was
tiny.
smaller than my fingernail. It was tiny. And it was the kids were like, oh, it's so cute. So the kids at the school where I was at, they had respect for nature. They loved nature. They weren't scared of it. But generally, a lot of people are fearful of spiders and snakes because a lot of them are venomous. But of all of in our 3 years of our biodiversity project, we only found 2 wasps, a couple of European bees, and there was nothing else venomous in our study. So Australia does have a lot of venomous creatures. We do have a very bad reputation for that. I think we've got like the top.
That's what I've heard. Snakes,
top
spiders,
10. In the top 10, we do have a lot of the world's most venomous creatures. But I am in the middle of my life, and I've only ever seen. I saw a brown snake the other bushwalking about a month ago, and it was a tiny one. It was like that big, but you don't get bitten by them because they'll kill you. So I saw that but I never see. That's the first time I've ever seen a real one in real life. And I was in the bush, and it was more scared of me than I was of it. And
so it's not so scary, that.
One of the girls I was with, she was petrified. So, and so it's about teaching respect, live and let live. If it's not going to hurt you, can you capture and release? And that's what I mean when I said we don't spray. A lot of people spray pesticides to keep spiders and things at bay, but it's about knowing what spiders and snakes are venomous. So we had a green tree python in our front yard, but green tree pythons aren't venomous, and they were probably after the frogs that live in my garden. So it eats frogs. So it's about just knowing what's poisonous and what's not. And I think just being respectful and and giving space. If I was to see a venomous spider, mainly a funnel web or a whitetail, they would die. I will not. I don't want a funnel web. They can cause a lot of pain and sickness, and kill a child. So I wouldn't want one of those. But most of our spiders and snakes aren't deadly. It's just the ones that are well known. But like I said, you don't see them. So especially if you live in a city, you don't see them in the city really. So
that's fantastic. So Australia is not only about snakes and spiders all over, so stop saying this.
And our bees, interestingly, bees, we have, I don't know how many varieties of bees we have. Native bees don't sting. So it's only European bees that sting. Wasps sting, but our native bees don't. So they're stingless bees, and some of them are solitary, and they're actually quite beautiful. One of them is called a blue banded bee, and it has little blue bands on its abdomen, and it lives by itself in a solitary hole, and usually in rock or in clay walls. Or so there's lots and lots of great creatures, and I think it's just finding what you have. What's special about where you live?
And taking care of this. This is like,
That's it, because the tundra is so
yeah.
important for it's so important for some animals. You know, there are animals
Yeah.
that live there, and it's really important for them. And if we lose that, what
And
what
we're
do we
losing, keep
lose?
losing, and
I know.
nobody cares so much. I see that. I feel sad.
No.
Like, it's
And
so
so,
sad.
see, we have a motto here at the beach, and I don't know if it started here, but there's signs everywhere when you're at the beach, and it's take 3 for the sea. So when you're at the beach, if you find 3 pieces of rubbish, take 3 pieces of rubbish when you go home. If you
I
see
do
something,
that.
pick
No,
it up,
say,
put it in the bin. And that's really important, because that plastic just breaks down and forms that microplastics, and we just don't. I actually saw a citizen science project today on microplastics in your home that come from your fabrics and artificial textiles that we use, because we don't all use wool and cotton, and all of those artificial plastics that come off those clothes and off your carpets and your curtains and your
yeah.
and it's
I
in your
totally agree with Maria. It's so touching. Yeah, it's like, you see my it's this attitude. When I see that kids, their behavior here, like drop this litter on the ground, I'm like shocked, because I always take care of the territory, the backyards, wherever I live. So I'm responsible for this place. I try to plant things. But, some people, I look at the parents and I see that the same stuff they're doing, like dropping things.
Yeah,
Why? It's like,
and that does
oh,
happen here as well. It's just about slowly educating children, and teachers are in that perfect position where you can talk to why we don't want to drop it on the ground, because it'll end up in the ocean, goes down the gutter, goes down the drain, and it will get washed into the river, washed into your creek or into your local ocean, And even when you're inland, it gets washed into lakes, inland seas, and we want to make sure that we stop it before it goes there. It's so easy just to pick up one thing and put it in the bin. So it's
be
just,
responsible.
I think it's just us. We've just got this perfect opportunity as a teacher to give children a why. Why do we need to do that?
Can I do that again? Just please. I know that it's, what time is it at your side? Like,
It's 10 o'clock, just past 10 o'clock.
Oh my God. Oh, so I'm so grateful that you're sharing today. And because, Australia is such an amazing country with so many unique things to learn about. And that the way, again, that we need to learn that from you. So take care more of your environments, and teach your students that it's so important, to take care of our world, because we're all connected, because people drop the litter out of their windows, it's not mine. Who cares?
In Australia, if you do that and someone gets your number plate, you can be reported and you get fined.
Good thing.
You get fined. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's $50. $50 minimum $50 fine. That's Australian dollars. If you drop something out of your car window. So it's not.
I love this.
It doesn't stop everybody, but it does.
But
there is an allowance there that they can follow you up if they think you did the wrong thing. So if
something to think about. Yeah.
It's important, and even I don't know. It's just we don't have single-use plastics anymore, so there's no. If you go to the shops, you don't get given a plastic bag. You actually
my pain point here. Like, I hated that they still do that.
So they've started encouraging people to take their bags, and we've got recycling programs for tin, bottle, cans. My council has 3 bins. So you have rubbish, recycling, and green, and you put them in there, and different trucks take the different bins.
Perfect.
But we're not very good at it yet.
Oh, it's here the same, but so yeah, that's totally, yeah, Maria, because I've been like yesterday, oh my gosh, or the day before yesterday in Nizhny Novgorod at her place, and we were discussing these things about the litter, about the culture, and what you've shared. This is so important. Like, I'm so sparked. I'm so touched with all the stories that you shared and the way that you teach your students. This is so I want to say that the Waco Resource Collection in the Q&A box on YouTube. So hop in here and don't forget to give a follow to Amazing Meridith and just follow her journey. She's got amazing website and also on Instagram and on Twitter. And thank you, Meridith, that you taught us today on this amazing, so thoughtful, meaningful topic, And I just want to say thank you so much. And please don't leave this room when we stop, being live. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A box. And of course,
if they have questions, feel free to even message after if they reach out on Twitter or on LinkedIn, Instagram. I've got my Facebook page is. I started my Facebook page because people were wanting to be friends on Facebook, and
like me,
I just thought it wasn't respectful of people's privacy. Like, so I started my page so that you don't have to share your entire life with me to find out things that you want to find out. So you can still message me privately as well. So,
but we are everywhere. So these days, because when the Twitter started to have this blue button thing, people started to move from one social media to another one. And so I think we're everywhere. And on Facebook, it's more like family playground for many people. But anyway, or we can promote these meaningful topics to everywhere. I think it's worth to learn more about. And Meridith, anytime, next time, I can't wait to meet you, to have you here for the second time, because you have so many things to share, I'm sure. About plastic, we had an amazing webinar with Manuela, an incredible music teacher from Portugal, and she shared about plastic, and that was the pictures that she shared. Oh my God, my students made lots of screenshots. It touched their hearts so much, and that was great. I will attach the link to this live also in the description box. And don't forget to share your highlights from this session on Twitter or on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, if you're a user there. So, and I wish you have a great Sunday. Thanks to everyone who joined us on Sunday. And Meridith, you're amazing. I really appreciate your time and your sharing 25 years of amazing, brilliant teaching of yours. And I'm sure that your students, they will be like successful and very caring to the nature and any place where they live.
Thank you for having me. It's been I was surprised when you reached out, but I'm so pleased that we could meet. It's been great.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for more upcoming video webinars and stay safe. Bye.
Bye.